Hey, Europe Unfiltered fans! Welcome back to the channel where we dare to question the narratives spoon-fed to us by the mainstream media. Today we're not just scratching the surface, we're grabbing a shovel and digging deep into the EU's dirty little secrets. Forget the glossy brochures and the carefully crafted press releases. We're going beyond the surface-level unity and diving headfirst into the complex, often contradictory reality of the European Union. We're talking about the issues they don't want you to know about, the problems they try to sweep under the rug, and the uncomfortable truths that threaten the entire European project. Europe's glowing facade, that picture-perfect image of unity and prosperity, hides deep fissures. These aren't just minor cracks. They're gaping chasms of political division, economic inequality, and social unrest. These tensions turn everyday headlines into battlegrounds, fueling heated debates and sparking passionate protests across the continent. From farmers clashing with police over environmental regulations to workers striking against austerity measures, the fault lines are becoming increasingly visible. The media often portrays these events as isolated incidents, but we're here to connect the dots and reveal the underlying systemic issues that are driving these conflicts. Find out why the EU's united front is in many ways a carefully constructed myth. We'll expose the internal power struggles, the conflicting national interests, and the growing resentment towards Brussels' centralized control. Is the EU truly a collaborative partnership of sovereign nations, or is it becoming an increasingly bureaucratic and undemocratic superstate? We'll examine the evidence and let you decide for yourself. We'll delve into the debates surrounding national sovereignty, immigration policies, and economic disparities, revealing the deep divisions that threaten to unravel the entire European project. Stay tuned, stay informed, stay unfiltered. The EU loves to tout itself as the pinnacle of democratic cooperation, a shining example of international collaboration and shared values. But let's peel back the layers of rhetoric and examine the reality on the ground. How much real power do ordinary citizens have to influence EU policy? Are their voices being heard in the halls of Brussels? And are the EU's policies truly benefiting all member states, or are they primarily serving the interests of a select few? We'll investigate the complex web of lobbying, political maneuvering, and bureaucratic red tape that shapes EU decision-making, revealing the often opaque processes that lie beneath the surface. Take Hungary, for example, a nation that has increasingly found itself at odds with the EU's policies and priorities. The question is, who really controls your energy policy, your elected government accountable to its citizens, or unelected EU bureaucrats in Brussels driven by their own agendas? This isn't just about Hungary, it's about the fundamental principles of national sovereignty and democratic accountability. We'll explore the growing tensions between national governments and the EU's central authority, examining the challenges to national identity, cultural preservation, and economic independence. We'll also look at the rise of populism and nationalism across Europe, and the ways in which these movements are challenging the EU's authority and questioning its legitimacy. They promise prosperity, a future paved with gold, a seamless market where everyone benefits. But what's the real cost, the hidden price tag attached to this grand vision? Look around. Industries relocate, lured away by promises of lower taxes and fewer regulations, leaving behind ghost towns and broken dreams. Ports sit empty, once bustling hubs of commerce, now silent witnesses to a bygone era, their cranes rusting under a leaden sky. Local economies crumble, the foundations of communities eroded by the relentless tide of globalization, leaving families struggling to make ends meet. The promise of prosperity rings hollow when the factories close and the jobs disappear. We were told that integration would lift all boats, but instead, many have been left stranded on the shores of economic hardship. The vibrant tapestry of local businesses, the heart and soul of our communities, is slowly unraveling, replaced by the sterile uniformity of multinational corporations. The unique character of our towns and cities is fading, as local shops are forced to close their doors, unable to compete with the giants of the global marketplace. The human cost of this economic transformation is often overlooked, the stories of those who have lost their livelihoods and their sense of purpose buried beneath the weight of statistics and economic jargon. We must ask ourselves, is this the price of progress? Is this the future we want for our children? While Brussels bureaucrats profit handsomely from integration, insulated in their ivory towers, ordinary Europeans are forced to pay the price. They pay through lost sovereignty, their voices drowned out by the chorus of centralized power, their ability to shape their own destinies diminished with each new regulation imposed from afar. They pay through economic dependence, their livelihoods tied to the whims of a distant and unaccountable bureaucracy. Their future's uncertain in a world where decisions are made behind closed doors. The gap between the rulers and the ruled widens with each passing day, creating a sense of alienation and resentment that threatens to tear the fabric of our society apart. The promise of a united Europe has turned into a nightmare for many, a system that favors the powerful and the privileged at the expense of the ordinary citizen. The dream of a shared prosperity has become a reality of growing inequality, where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. The voices of dissent are growing louder as people begin to question the wisdom of blindly following the path of integration, demanding a return to local control and a greater say in their own affairs. EU relief funds? Ah yes, the supposed lifeline thrown to struggling regions. But here's the cold, hard truth, the inconvenient reality they don't want you to know. For every euro in aid that trickles down to local communities, a staggering €9 flow right back to Brussels. This isn't aid, it's a cleverly disguised system of control, a way to extract wealth from the periphery and concentrate it in the center. These funds are often tied to a labyrinthine web of regulations and compliance costs, forcing local businesses to spend vast sums of money just to access the assistance they desperately need. The paperwork alone can be enough to bankrupt a small enterprise, leaving them worse off than they were before. The system is designed to benefit the bureaucrats and consultants who administer the funds, not the people who are supposed to receive them. It's a self-perpetuating cycle of dependency, where regions become reliant on EU handouts, losing their ability to innovate and compete on their own. The true cost of these funds is far greater than the monetary value. It's the loss of independence, the erosion of local autonomy, and the stifling of entrepreneurial spirit. Small businesses and local artisans, the backbone of our communities, are forced to bear the crushing burden of EU regulations and economic policies. They struggle to compete with multinational corporations that benefit from economies of scale and preferential treatment. They are drowning in red tape, spending countless hours and resources trying to comply with complex rules and regulations that seem designed to stifle innovation and entrepreneurship. Meanwhile, EU officials, safely ensconced in their luxurious offices, shrug off responsibility for the economic devastation they have wrought. They offer empty platitudes and meaningless gestures, while the small businesses that are the lifeblood of our communities wither and die. The human cost of this indifference is immeasurable. The loss of livelihoods, the destruction of families, and the erosion of social cohesion. We must hold these officials accountable for their actions and demand a change in policies that prioritize the needs of ordinary citizens over the interests of powerful corporations and bureaucratic elites. The future of our communities depends on it. The European Union, once envisioned as a beacon of unity and prosperity, now faces a crisis of credibility. The question looms large. What is the EU's credibility worth when they consistently ignore their own agreements and the will of member nations? We see a pattern of decisions made in Brussels that seem to disregard the unique needs and desires of individual countries. This raises fundamental questions about the EU's commitment to its own principles of subsidiarity and respect for national sovereignty. Is it truly a union of equals, or is it becoming a centralized power structure that imposes its will upon its members? The growing discontent across the continent suggests that many believe the latter to be true. People are taking to the streets, expressing their frustration with policies that they feel are out of touch with their daily lives and national identities. They are demanding a return to self-determination and a greater say in the decisions that affect their future. The very foundation of the EU is being challenged as citizens question whether the benefits of membership outweigh the costs of surrendering control over their own affairs. The disconnect between the EU's governing elite and the realities faced by ordinary citizens is becoming increasingly apparent. Disconnected officials in Luxembourg, insulated from the consequences of their actions, make decisions that devastate communities they'll never visit. These are the communities that have been hollowed out by globalization, deindustrialization, and the free movement of labor. They are the forgotten corners of Europe, where the promises of prosperity and opportunity have failed to materialize. The policies enacted in the halls of power often have unintended consequences, exacerbating existing inequalities and creating new challenges for those already struggling to make ends meet. The EU's focus on economic integration has, in many cases, come at the expense of social cohesion and national identity. The result is a growing sense of alienation and resentment among those who feel left behind by the forces of globalization. The marble corridors of power seem a world away from the struggling high streets and unemployment lines that define the reality for many Europeans. The facade of European unity and prosperity is beginning to crumble, revealing the underlying tensions and inequalities that have long been simmering beneath the surface. Even tourists, with only a superficial glimpse of the continent, can see through the propaganda. They witness the stark contrast between the glamorous landmarks and the visible signs of economic and social decay. The gap between EU promises and reality grows wider each day, as the benefits of integration fail to reach all segments of society. The narrative of a united and prosperous Europe is increasingly at odds with the lived experiences of many citizens. The rise of populism and nationalism across the continent is a direct consequence of this disconnect. People are seeking alternative visions of the future, ones that prioritize national interests and local communities over the dictates of Brussels. The EU faces a critical juncture. It must either address the underlying causes of discontent or risk further fragmentation and decline. The future of Europe hangs in the balance, dependent on whether its leaders can bridge the gap between promise and reality. The EU dream? A beautiful facade hiding deep crevices of cronyism and control. Europe Unfiltered subscribers, if you hunger for truth, subscribe now. Let's continue unmasking the reality behind the EU's carefully crafted image.